All right, I'm a bit early today. User 1! Not yet. I'm a little bit early. Can anyone beat user 1 to the first comment this time? Hopefully my microphone's right, because I'm using these earphones. This mic doesn't work anyway, so hopefully it's just the webcam mic this time. I don't have to mess around. I am a little early. What I'll do is I've got it's annoying. Right, I've got to put the tags in and everything now. Oh, hang on. It's good news is I'll be putting my desktop PC, my normal one, in for repair tomorrow. But it takes about a week to fix. It depends how much needs to be done. It's possible it will need replacing. I hope not, but it might have to be replaced. Okay, just put the tags in. There we go. I'll put the year in. There we go. Save. Right, let's just see how I'm going. Oh, I am live. Customize channel. Oh, Bumbelina, hello, how are you? And Sorenable, Strip Bear, Legend Real, Martin Taylor, Woody Black, TK, good evening. I'm a little bit early today, actually. Just going to do the share around. Okay. Just going to do the old share around, guys. This usually takes a few minutes. Don't mind me. Hope you guys are all right. Hello, John. Simon Tucker, hello. John K, hello. Rod, hello. Greetings, all of you. How are you? Hope you're all right, guys. I'm just going to send someone a quick message. 1 sec. I'll wait for more people to arrive. I don't know. So let's do the share first. 2 for Thompson. A second live stream in as many days. I must be getting live stream addiction. But I'm not doing one tomorrow though. One sec. Just sending someone a quick message. There we go. Okay, just post to Facebook, that's it. It's fun doing these though, isn't it? It's fun. It is. It's fun doing these videos. I like doing these live streams. They're a good laugh. Okay, just share this around. You may notice the thumbnail. I deliberately chose a thumbnail to make it stand out from last night's live stream, because if I didn't, it would just the two might look too much the same. So I posted myself sitting sideways like that, looking sort of romantically into the distance. Okay. Just sharing on Facebook. I'm just sharing to various groups. Oh, Steve Mumbling has seen the Ariel phenomenon, I really do. Oh, I hope he's seen it. Oh, it'd be good if he has. It'll be fun if he has. Not a minibus in sight. Little spoiler for you. Hey guys, hello. Nothing as it seems. It's 11 a.m. when nothing as it seems is. All right. Diego Rivera, hello. I am back. Tor Engen, it's 8 p.m. where you are. All right. I'm guessing you're on the continent somewhere. David Schultz, greetings from sunny Maine. I'm glad it's sunny. Clopite, no Memorial Day there tomorrow. You know, in Britain we have we got the Jubilee coming up. Woody Black says your comment was censored for saying a certain website. Oh, it does happen, doesn't it? Hello, Tina. How are you? Lester Piggott died today in Switzerland. Oh dear. Was he was a jockey, wasn't he? Yeah. He must have been pretty old. Hey guys, let's just see if we get a few more people in. Hopefully, no, Clopite. I'm not going to read that out because I'll probably all get my head cut off. But, oops. But she may already be. Maybe I'll have something to discuss because I'll probably do a live stream for the Jubilee at some point. So I said I tried looking Woody Black. This is for this documentary on a certain video website, Bit something, and a certain torrent site to pirate something. Oh right. I think I can guess what it was, Woody Black. Well, YouTube don't like free speech rivals like that. Is this the website whose headquarters I managed to visit with Tina? He was 86, says Tina. Right. Pretty getting on a bit, yeah. Excuse me. Shellcatcher, the Queen died ages ago. Most of the footage is CGI or double. Yeah, I got a feeling she's only made one public appearance in the last few weeks. It could easily have been an actress, just done up to look like her. A lot of famous people have had doubles. Stalin had a double. Saddam Hussein had a double. Yeah. It's kind of the Prisoner of Zenda type situation. Tina, the Queen was at the Windsor Horse Show last week. She did turn up for it. Well, somebody turned up who looked like her anyway and was called the Queen and dressed like the Queen, was treated like the Queen. Whether it was actually her or not is another matter. I'm just now going to go to the notice comments now. Oh, I've got a Twitter. I've got to put this on Twitter as well. I wonder if there's a hashtag trending. Let's have a look. I spoke to a lady I know on LinkedIn, actually, someone I interviewed, Denise David Williams. She's got a... Where's the damn notice? Here we go. Oh, so it's Hourglass in badly. Come on, okay. Hashtag. Let's see if there's a hashtag trending. Is there not? No. No. I won't bother then if there's no hashtag. There we go. The title should be enough. Okay, notice. All right, let's have a look at the notice comments. Right, I'm just going to sort this out. I've just finished, I'm literally just this minute, I'm doing it now, I've finished uploading yesterday's live stream to the alt tech sites. It's more difficult with this laptop. It's not as good with the laptop. What's they did? Excrement site. What's going on now? This is a... So everything I had is gone. All the stuff that I saved is gone. Oh dear, sorry about this, guys. This is annoying. I've just it's wasting time. It's wasting your time. I'm sorry about this, but this is just a pain in the bottom. It really is. Okay. BitChute. Oh, did I say a dirty word? I don't care. There'll be a few more people joining, hopefully. I'm glad I've sorted the sound out anyway. Yeah, it seems that you don't get a choice of what microphone to use when you're using a laptop like this. You have to use the laptop's inbuilt mic. And if you plug in a separate microphone, it works alongside that one. Okay, Odyssey. Oh God, you know, it'd be nice. I do miss my normal computer. I'm just so used to it. There's this laptop. I'm gonna have to plug it in soon, actually, because battery's almost flat. Sorry to waste your time, guys. It's just I'm gonna read. While I make that page load, I'll go through the comments here. Apparently there was a riot. David Schultz, Tina Silver. Yeah, there was a riot in Paris yesterday over the football. Yeah, because there was some mess up with the tickets and it caused a riot. Churchill had a double. Yeah, says Tina. Hillary has a double. I have a double Bacardi, Martin Taylor. Tina, I've met my double. So did I, yeah. It was a bit scary, actually. The Queen bred Afghan hounds and race courses, yeah. We went there, didn't we, Tina? Do you remember? Rick Horden, the Queen. Nothing as it seems. I've seen it. Stephen Truthseeker, hello, how are you? Any new? Donna Wellham, good evening. I'm back indoors now. All right. Hello, User One. Oh, you had a family emergency. I'm sorry, User One. I looked and I didn't see you there at the top of the list, and I thought, oh well. I hope it's all right, User One. Hope it's all right. Good evening, Splendid Isolation. Yeah. Apparently there was a bit of a hoo-ha because something wrong. From what I gather, some people turned up with tickets and they weren't allowed in. Other people were walking through without tickets, and all hell broke loose. Obviously, I mean that's understandable. And there was a riot, and tear gas and that was used on the Liverpool fans. Turns out Real Madrid won anyway.
Right,
okay. I'm just finishing this. This stupid thing's taking ages. Right. I just want to get it. I can't multitask, I'm afraid, guys. I'm a bit spurgy when it comes to things like that. Okay, preview. What's it look like? That's it. Perfect. Right. And all the links work. Yes, they do. Right. Update. There you go. All done. Changes saved. Good. All right, guys. Sorry about that. And I posted on Twitter. Cher has one too, but it was a bloke. Yeah, I think it was Barry Manilow tour. Yeah. Was the Illuminati attacking Liverpool? Some people were saying they were angry about Hillsborough. Of course, they're still angry about Hillsborough. They'll never get over that. I don't blame them. Oh, David says, I managed to download Ariel Phenomenon. Brilliant. Worth the long wait. Oh, right. I didn't know it was downloadable yet. I know you can stream it on the site. Yeah, it is on the... Is that a pumpkin on your bed, says Tina? Oh my God! What is that? What the hell is that? Oh, it's the... Don't worry, Tina. It's the post. I've got like a pine, but it's a... I looked at it and thought, what the hell's that? Oh... Nothing says you refer to San Francisco as the city. I refer to Europe as the continent, yeah. Stephen, it was really another Hillsborough hazel. You know, those were both terrible disasters. How bad was the damage? Was anyone hurt? I haven't been following it, I'm sorry. I'll just have a look on the news. I'll look on the British Bullshit Corporation first. Right, Paris football chaos. There's a woman here who had asthma. She was gassed. Yep, the police fired tear gas at Liverpool fans. All I saw was a headline saying, someone put a headline saying that the team had been delayed due to security issues. The French are like that though, aren't they? The French they're heavy-handed, the police. They've got Macron in there, haven't they? Well, I've already covered the election, haven't I? Real Madrid won 1-0. Oh, right. That's bad though, isn't it? That's really bad. Bed knobs and broomsticks. Hello, Deb Allen. How you doing? All right, guys. So the aerial phenomenon, you can currently it's only available in one location, which is the website. It's not cheap, actually. It's US dollars 24 US dollars, and that's only for a 3-day rental. I'd say it's worth it. It's worth it, and they are planning to put it onto Amazon, Netflix, and things like that. This was a difficult production, actually. It's been a lot of people said this. It's been like Capel Green. People said this is never going to come. It's never going to turn up. Hello, Hugo Roon. How are you? And Stephen thinks, oh, right, it was a warning from the Illuminati for booing the Prince. Yeah, Prince William was booed, wasn't he? Maybe that was it. Maybe it literally was staged, Stephen. Yeah, maybe it was staged. This film. It's taken ages to make. Hello, Crafty Nihilist. How are you? It's taken, I don't know, God knows how many years. It's, I think, about, I don't know. I was talking to Denise David Williams on the other day. Someone I actually interviewed many years ago. She remembered me, which is quite something. I interviewed her. She also is working on a film about John Mack. And the trailer's out. Hopefully there'll be an update on that soon. I don't have one right now, but it's still an active project as well. But I don't have any information. Certainly nothing that she hasn't. Nothing I can say publicly anyway. But I did discuss this film. I did discuss this particular film, Ariel Phenomenon, as well. And she's very interested in this case. And in our interview, we discussed the Ariel Phenomenon case. This was before the plan for the film was out. But I'd already seen several things about it, including Randy Nicholson's first documentary, which is it's really just a couple of clips plus a lecture he does. It's not really a documentary, but there's been a huge update since then. Now, I had loads of notes. I watched the film. I watched it all the way through. I had about a page of notes which I can't access because they're on the bloody desktop, which I can't switch on. It doesn't work, and I didn't back them up. So, unfortunately, I can't. There's nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. Nothing I can do about it. Hello, Diazepam. How are you? Diazepam, the Welsh pharmaceutical company. How you doing? Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'll just check my message here. But it's really good. I do. Oh, right, okay. Oh dear. It's someone who normally posts on live. Oh. I'll just say good luck. I'll just leave a little emoji here. So I'm sorry, I've had life gets in the way of these things. Right, where's the how's the battery doing? 49 minutes, 26%. I'll plug it in a minute. Apparently, according to Stephen here, in that football match, sorry to zip around different topics, but I did say related subjects, didn't I? There was almost another crush. It would have been pretty bad, and we've seen before how devastating these human crushes can be at sporting events. Hello, Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Good evening, Steve. How you doing, mate? You okay? Yeah. It's interesting, like, we did a good show, me and Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and no doubt the disclosure issue is going to come up again. It will come up again. Matthew Williams was there too. Kloppe, did you enjoy the probe conference? Well, if you watch the video, you'll find out. Did you probe Colin? And no, Colin doesn't like being probed. Yeah, apparently we're not letting fans into the ground. Yeah, back to the Ariel Phenomenon film, it's out finally. I mean, Nickerson and his team must be really, really pleased. They must be chuffed to bits that they've done it. They've finally done it. And no doubt with Capel Green it'll be the same. But this is something you'll probably be familiar with. You may have seen Nickerson's other documentary, which he made. He's been investigating this for like about 20 years. I think something like that. Hi Rick Horden, how you doing? But this was a remarkable event. What happened? It's a remarkable case. Now Steve Mumbling has his own ideas about this. I've made an entire video about this. Did I do? Hold on, I must have done I'm sure I did a complete dedicated. Yeah, here we go. It's this. There we go. I'll put it in chat there so people can access it. I do recommend watching this actually because the mumbler decided in his infinite wisdom that the whole thing was caused by a minibus. Somebody took a minibus and they parked it near the school. I love Colin too, nothing as it seems. Yeah, I do. Oh, he's cool. Colin's a deep. TK, why don't the aliens do disclosure themselves? I don't know. I mean, how do we possibly know what they're thinking? How can we, even if you've got a dog or a cat or something, you can, it's difficult to communicate between species. A dog or cat will sometimes do something and you'll think, why the hell is that? Why is it doing that? We can't comprehend what they're up to. They know because they're dogs and cats. We don't. It's usually something to do with smell. They'll suddenly start acting strangely because they get a strange smell. Because our sense of smell, as humans, our sense of smell is almost non-existent compared to most other species. So we go like, why are they doing that? It's because they're smelling something and we can't smell it. Something like that usually. And of course, we do lots of things that the dog or the cat couldn't possibly comprehend. You couldn't sit down and do a film review with your dog. There is interspecies communications. I mean, like if someone turns up at the house the dog doesn't like, he'll let you know. But it is limited communication between species. Now, when we extrapolate that to creatures that don't even come from this planet? Excuse me. How do we know? How the hell can we? I don't know how we can't. Sometimes people anthropomorphize these aliens, try to put themselves in the alien's shoes, which even if they had 2 feet, you can't really do. Hello, Teresa Walker. How do you do? And Stephen says it's not time yet. Humans are not ready. Maybe. Now there is the kind of interspecies communications you'll get. This particular event, which was a close encounter of the third kind, does involve an element of communication. It wasn't a minibus, and Steve Mumbling will watch this. He can't resist it. He will watch this, and he'll put a comment, and it's not a bloody minibus. I mean, I'm going to address another skeptic story in a minute, but to give you the basics, it happened on September the 16th, 1994, in the morning at a place called Rua, which is in Zimbabwe. It's a place called the Ariel School, which is it's a very privileged school. It's like a fee-paying elementary school for children aged between 6 and 12. I suppose these are what we used to call posh kids. They're quite wealthy children from wealthy families. Zimbabwe's elite, if you can call them that. Not the actual bloody Mugabe and all that crowd. But what happened was, they were in a morning break time. The staff were all having a meeting. None of the teachers saw this happen. And the children suddenly became running back to the school, claiming that they saw some strange things. Now, their stories do vary, which is, the skeptics have made a lot of hay out of the fact that the children's stories are not all exactly the same. But then the same would happen if a plane had crashed. What the stories would put, the general consensus of most of the 62 witnesses was that creatures they described as one thing. Some things are consistent: large oval-shaped eyes, described as like rugby balls, black clothing. These are humanoid creatures, black clothing, and a telepathic communication, very often with an environmental theme. This is quite common. Going back to George Adamski, the aliens warn us about war and environmental damage. The skeptics call it mass hysteria. The teachers would at first didn't believe them, but later on they did. They did believe them. The school itself is like on the border of what you often get in a third world, which is modern city-like lifestyles and traditional old-fashioned rural lifestyles. It was kind of on the border of these two worlds, the rural areas and the city areas in Zimbabwe. What happened was, interestingly, that 2 days prior to this event, there were a lot of UFO sightings in Zimbabwe, and this was featured on the local BBC network quite considerably. A guy called, I wish I had my notes here, somebody Leach. Oh, gee, I hate it when I can't think of that. What's his name? What's his bloody name? Tim Leach. Yeah, Tim Leach. He was famous. Famously, he was actually jailed when he covered the war in the 80s. He's a BBC journalist called Tim Leach, and he covered this in detail. It was also covered on ZBC, that's Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation. They said things like, "Oh, it was a fireball, it was a meteor," commentary fragments, things like that. That's how it was reported in the news. But if you listen to the descriptions, and indeed some video footage was captured as well. This is before the incident in Rua. They described something very different. Now, Brian Dunning, the skeptic, we'll be talking more about him later, said it was caused by the re-entry of the Zenit 2 rocket from the Cosmos 229 satellite launch. This was a Russian satellite, which was sent into space at that time, and the booster rocket actually came down or broke up in the atmosphere above southern Africa. The booster broke up into burning streaks and moved silently across the sky, giving an impressive light show to millions of people in the local area. Now, the thing is, people don't describe that. The actual 2 days prior, people were describing seeing moving objects in the sky under intelligent control. Some were structured, some were brightly lit. There's video footage of this. It's actually in the film, Ariel Phenomenon. Like I said, I wish I had my notes with me. And this was actually covered by Cynthia Hyde. Now, Cynthia Hyde is the MUFON representative for Africa. That's quite a task she's got on her hands, actually, because she's a South African lady who covers all UFO reports for MUFON in Africa. Just one person for an entire continent. And you may think, well, that doesn't matter because, UFOs don't really happen very often in Africa, do they? Well, yes, they do. UFOs happen in Africa as much as they do anywhere else. There was a very interesting incident in northeastern Nigeria, actually, a couple of years ago. Yeah, so she's got her work cut out there, Cynthia. And at about 10 a.m. on September the 16th, this was 2 days after this UFOs, they were outside on the mid-morning break. All the faculty were indoors having a meeting. The entire incident lasted about 15 minutes, and the children then returned to the school in an agitated state, and they said, look, we've had a strange experience. And the teachers didn't believe them at first, but later on they did, because this wouldn't go away. I'm sure the teachers knew these children well and were quite used to the various pranks they play. They're quite used to the various pranks they play. But they kept maintaining, and normally they would have a laugh with the teachers and it would be all over. But they maintained their story. I'm just going to go through the comments here now. Nothing says his cats are super sensible. TK, my dogs like ice cream. All dogs like ice cream, don't they? Zimbabwe. What a country Zimbabwe is. Yeah, it's a bloody horrible place. Well, it's not the fault of the people. It's the government. Oh, don't forget to charge off the phone. Oh, right. Where am I? I'm on the battery. Yep. Right. I bet. Okay, I'll plug it in now. It's not the phone. It's the laptop. But I'll plug it in. It's got 15% left on the battery. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for reminding me. Guys, here we go. Right, plug that in there and sorted. Right. Okay, it's charging now. Yeah, right. Okay, it's plugged in. It's on the mains. Yes, obviously Zimbabwe has suffered terrible political problems over the last 40, 50 years. Pim the Pigeon Master, greetings. Stephen thought I was using an inhaler on my radio show on Thursday. Oh, did I? Oh, it's when I yawn. Yeah, I get... It's just when I'm talking, I either yawn or I get a runny nose or I cough. It's either one or the other. You just got to make the most of it. Rick, thanks for reminding me. The laptop is now charging. Right. So, like children, the children kept maintaining this was real. Eventually, the teachers believed them. And what's more, children don't do that when they play pranks. Normally, these pranks can be uncovered very quickly. The fact that the teachers very quickly came around to taking them seriously is very interesting. And guess what? A lot of those kids stand by their story today, and they're featured in the film. In my notes, I've got an entire list of the names and where they are right now. A lot of them have left the country because it's such a horrible place, because it has all the kinds of political problems that country has. Stephen says, UFOs happen all the time. There's cloaked ships all over and crafts circling our planet. Yes, and Africa is no exception to any other continent. This is a global phenomenon. Rick Horden says, it's a fascinating case. Wasn't there another case in Australia around the same time with adults and children as witnesses? It was actually in 1966, Rick, and it was at the Ariel School in Melbourne. But there are a lot of similarities. There are many, many similarities. Yeah, the communication wasn't there, but a lot of other similarities. It's far another incident which is even more similar. It's one that I covered quite recently in my film Into the Triangle. It's the Broadhaven School incident, which has many, many more similarities. Yeah. So, when you were a little kid, I was going to ask you, right, when you were a little kid at school, how many times did you play pranks? Because like me, if you were like me, you probably played them all the time. Kids have a great sense of humour. All children I know love practical jokes. Now, how many of those pranks you played when you were 6 to 12 years old do you maintain to this day are still true? These kids do. They're adults now. The person most featured the most is actually Emily Trim. Now, she was a third grade. She was in the third grade at that school with a teacher called Mrs. Hawacha. And she takes a trip. She's a Canadian, actually. Her family was in the Salvation Army, and they were missionaries. And she had come from Canada. She's now back in Canada. She went back to Canada. She's probably about 30 years old now. If she was in third grade in 1994, she'd be about 30 to 31 years old. And she goes back there. She goes back to the school in Zimbabwe and meets the teachers. Miss Bates, the headmistress, Miss Bates is the headmistress now, who's one of the teachers. But she was a teacher that Emily recognised, who was there at the time. I don't know what happened to, there was the Mr. Mackey was the actual headmaster, who was interviewed by Leach and interviewed by John Mack later on, and interviewed by Cynthia Hind. He was the headmaster at the school at the time in 94. And he took what the children said seriously. All the teachers actually did. This news footage is available that was recorded by Cynthia and also by John Mack and Stephanie Kalamanopoulos, his assistant. Sorry, Dominique Kalamanopoulos. There's it's all on YouTube. You can watch it, and also the interviews that were done by there's the interviews with Cynthia Hind and also with John Mack. So the parents also were the parents responded like the teachers did. They thought, well, these kids, this child's been truthful. The children drew pictures of what they saw. Tim Leach visited the school on the 19th of September. Cynthia Hind came over from South Africa to visit this school. And then in November, 2 months later, John Mack managed to visit the school with Dominique Kalamanopoulos and interview the witnesses. The story of John Mack is quite something. I mean, the film actually covers what happened to him. He was treated like shit. He really was. What was done to him was a terrible. This is why people don't talk openly about UFOs when they're in academia. At least they didn't back then. I think maybe things are changing. I hope so. But the skeptics say, well, if alien abduction was real, all the psychologists would be saying it was real. Why? Psychologists have got bills to pay just like everyone else. Not many of them has as much courage as John Mack. And the Harvard University Medical School they basically tried to kick him out. I mean, I could go on for ages about what happened to him. Hopefully it'll be in Denise's film. I'm looking forward to that a lot as well. I'll no doubt cover that as well. So the story is that some kids said just one creature, others said 4. It may depend on where they were, how many they could see, and very often you get these divergences in story. The divergence in the story doesn't mean it's not true. If children witness a road accident, the same thing happened. Children more than adults are likely to do this sort of thing. It doesn't. There are consistencies in their story. Another problem is, of course, it was not possible to carry out uncontaminated interviews. What I meant by that, what a researcher would normally do, like Cynthia Hind, and she didn't actually do this, and she should have, is interview the children independently, because she got there quite quickly, and so did Tim Leach, independently in different locations, and not as a group, so they can't confer and can't create a narrative. Now, so there were other children in the playground that didn't see anything, because there were several hundred children in that playground. Not all of them saw everything, and again, there could be many reasons for that. They may have been looking the other way, or maybe they decided it was best not to. Maybe they were frightened, so frightened they couldn't. But this research project almost cost Mack his career. He had to take legal action. I mean, the lawyer who represented him was Danny Sheehan. The children, some of the children ran away straight away. You see, this is interesting. Probably a lot of the children who said they didn't see anything were the ones that ran away straight away. You see, in Westall, the skeptics still say that wasn't real, even though that didn't happen. There wasn't this discrepancy. But they communicated to the children an environmental message about looking after the planet, not harming nature, respecting animals and plants. These children were quite touched by this, I remember. Then they returned to the craft and flew away. In Mack's interviews, one 5th grader tells how he was warned about something that's going to happen, and pollution mustn't be. An 11-year-old girl told Mac, I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world, that we mustn't get too technological. One child said that he was told that the world would end because we're not taking care of the planet. And this is, again, aliens do say this. They seem to be concerned about this sort of thing. The children were adamant they'd not seen an aeroplane. Hind noted that the different cultural backgrounds of the children gave rise to different interpretations of what they'd seen, and they did not all believe that they'd seen extraterrestrials. Some of the children thought that the beings were Tokoloshis. These is creatures of Shona and Ndebele folklore. Yeah, the Tokoloshis, well, you see, that in a sense is an interpretation that in those days, you see, the Ariel School was like mostly white. I mean, today it's almost all black. I mean, I didn't see any white children in the school because there's some footage of the school today and it's still there. But the white people have almost all gone from Zimbabwe now. And I don't blame them. They're essentially fleeing for their lives. But Tokoloshis are creatures from local mythology. Credo Mutuas mentioned Tokoloshis, and they are they're rather like the jinn or I'll just have a look at what Tokoloshis are. Zulu Xhosa mythology, it's a dwarf-like water sprite considered mischievous and an evil spirit that can become invisible and is called upon by malevolent people to cause harm to others. Its least harmful, a Tokoloshi can be used to scare children, but its power extends to causing illness and even the death of the victim. The creature might be banished by a pastor, etc. It's in Bantu folklore to explain why people. All right. Okay, it's interesting. It's like a. It sounds like the local the people in Southern Africa, they do have the same experiences we have with abductions. What we call aliens, they very often call other things. According to Credo Mutwa, the grey aliens are quite common in Southern Africa. And the word the Zulus use for them is the Mantindane, which means the torturers. But they essentially are the same as our greys, what we call the grey aliens. The Ruwa UFO incident quickly became one of the most famous UFO cases in Africa. In June 2021, the BBC's Witness History described the event as one of the most significant events. Right, I've not seen that. That sounds interesting. It's from the BBC, so it probably won't be very good. Ufologists continue to cite the case as providing compelling evidence of extraterrestrial visits to Earth. Skeptics have dismissed the incident as mass hysteria or even a prank. Well, as I said, it's a prank that these kids in their early 30s now say they say it's real today. They're willing to be interviewed. Nicholson had a lot of trouble tracking these people down because they've scattered to the four corners of the earth now. Most of them have left the country. Very few of them are still in Zimbabwe. Yeah, Crafty Nice. I think macaroni or spaghetti is the pasta that would banish a Tokoloshi. Let's go through your comments, guys. Yeah, Brian Dunning and Steve Mumbling love this one. I don't want to miss any of your comments. Well, yeah, no. There we go. Oh, Stephen's watched my video. That's cool. That's cool. Thanks, Stephen. My nose is itching. Yeah. Again, itching nose is something I get when I'm broadcasting. Oh, Stephen's had a maths teacher at school who had a ghost story. All right. Nothing as it seems saw a flying saucer near McKellen Air Force Base. All right. Yeah, Brian Dunning and Steve Mumbling. We're going to go into Brian Dunning in a minute because he actually has an audio I want to play. Brian Dunning, I think he's out of jail now. He was in prison for a while, but being not the most, not expressing very much logical honesty, shall we say. Banished by a pastor. All right. That's it. All you need is like some vermicelli, just cook it up and you'll be safe from the Tokoloshi's, Crafty. And Tor says, I heard that the Tokoloshi needs to be captured to be evil if the owner tortured them. Yeah, I mean, these, it's not, Africa is full of these kinds of stories. There's a tradition in kind of magic and conjuring in Africa. The legend of the zombie comes from West Africa. The word zombie, actually, as you know, if you've seen my video on the subject, comes from Nzombe, which is a Niger-Congo language root word. And the original zombies didn't bite people and anything like that, but they would be animated by the Bokor, which is an evil shaman who deals with black magic. And the creature, this animated corpse, would then be like would be kind of like a servant. It could do things. You can make it do things. This was brought over to the Caribbean during the transatlantic slave trade into Haiti, where it became voodoo, and of course zombies are a big part of voodoo culture as well. Diego Rivera, was John Major a grey? I don't. He looks like one. He looks like a tortoise. I think he's got a face like a tortoise. Nothing as it seems. I've forgotten what year Ariel occurrence. 1994. It was September 1994. Now this completely passed me over because I was sort of getting into UFOs at the time, actually, but this completely passed me over because of personal issues in my life. What had happened in January of that year, I had my first daughter, Alice, was stillborn. Then, soon after that, my partner at the time got pregnant with Louisa, who's the daughter I have, and basically, I couldn't think about anything else during that time period at all, about just hoping that the baby was all right. As it happens, yes, she was. She was fine. She's 27 at the moment, so she came out and she's fine and she's grown up. But I went through 9 months of anxiety, complete anxiety. And so really, I couldn't think about these sorts of things back then. I'd already started like reading FT and 40 Times and things like that. But I just completely lost interest in everything except the baby, which is, I think that's normal for a father, especially after me and my partner at the time couldn't think about anything else. I mean, you may have seen the kids talking and the kids interviewing. I mean, the children being interviewed by John Mack, and then the children were interviewed by John Mack, and the videos were put on YouTube. John Mack sadly died. I think it was in there about 2006. I'll just have a look and see. John E. Mack. John E. Mack, American psychiatrist. Yeah, he died in 2004. Oh, he died 10 years later, September the 27th, 2004. It's awful, actually. He was actually here in Britain. He was here. He was in London, and a drunk driver mounted the pavement and hit him when he was walking along. Killed instantly. Very sad. Yeah, P was 74. But he and Dominique did these amazing interviews with these children. And this is like following this amazing incident. Now, Steve Mumbling did a video. I'm not going to do everything about Steve Mumbling because, but I will be covering the skeptic angle. But if you watch the film, it's really good. I mean, David Splendid Isolation has watched it. Like I say, it may seem a bit expensive, but it's worth it. Or you could wait because the price will come down eventually. It's when it gets onto Amazon and things. But I mean, I couldn't wait. I really wanted to see this. We've waited so long for this. A lot of people said, well, this film's been cancelled. It's not coming out. It hadn't been cancelled. It was a long, difficult project, which basically Nixon had to crowdfund. I can't remember if I sent him anything. If I didn't, I'm very sorry. I should have done. Stephen has seen levitating beings. All right. Well, your child was born in 1994. Oh, Yeah. Teresa said something is not adding up about John Mack's death. I don't know. Sometimes, several people have said that maybe he was silenced, maybe something was done, so he was going to do something which would have been dangerous. He had a lot of enemies, but and of course they didn't. He succeeded. He was not. He almost got sacked from his job at Harvard, and he didn't. He was a tenured professor, so they had to. They worked really hard to try and get rid of him. But he had tenure, which meant he had a contract there. And but they still the authorities really tried to get him out. There was a bloke in the film I really wanted to community guidelines. I really did. You talk about Mack, and he's horrible, rude individual talking about John Mack, one of the other Harvard people. It's amazing how angry these bigwigs get when people start. In psychiatry, it's almost like it's a mantra. Alien abduction is just nightmares. It's not real. It's subjective. It's not real. Matt came along. He wrote a book. He became very famous actually for saying, "Well, actually, it is real." Oh, Rhiannon, hello, good evening. How are you? Rhiannon's here. That's all right. If she's late, but not a problem. Oh, and David Schultz has brought up the Flatwoods Monster. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Stephen said black magic killed him. Sometimes people do just die, though. I mean, people have accidents like this. They do happen. People get ill. Some people do just have heart attacks. Some people do just have accidents. It does happen. I've seen no reason to be suspicious, actually. I'm itching now. Oh, God. Something always happens when I'm broadcasting. Anyway, let's see what the old jailbird has to say. Here we go. Let's go through this point by point. This is very interesting. I did make notes, like I said. Just check you can hear it. Oh, you can.
1994, Rua, Zimbabwe.
Can you all hear that? You should be able to hear it. Mm-hmm. Good evening, Jamie Howe. And this is just this is Brian Dunning. Brian Dunning. I don't know if he still does. He used to do. Hello, Alfred Miller. How do you do? Clobbite. What happened to the chupacabra? That's still good. That's still around. Brian Dunning was he was a skeptic. He was actually in. Funnily enough, he was interviewed for the Honest Liar, the biopic of James Randi. But then he's not credited. They don't have a caption with his name on. You can hear it. Great. Thanks, Woody Black. Thanks, Tor. I'll play it all in a minute. He's not credited because he became a bit when he went to jail. Thanks, User One. When he went to jail, he became a bit of a liability. Skeptics are not supposed to be like that, are they? Skeptics are supposed to be honest. Well, if you watch my skeptic lecture, and like the most recent one at Sufon is probably best, you'll know that this is just one of the ways in which skeptics are a little bit they're not as morally correct as they claim to be, and they like to portray themselves. In fact, there are worse ones than Brian Dunning, I can assure you. Here we go. So let's play this. I'll stop it at the interesting points.
Zimbabwe. Amid a rash of UFO reports from all over Africa, one story stood out.
Well, there was actually several stories. This one did stand out, but there were other reports. I mean, there were really some very interesting ones from just a couple of days earlier. Like I said, there's film footage of some very, very amazing scenes above the skies of Zimbabwe and other parts of southern Africa.
62 children at an elite private school reported a craft landed in the adjacent field, and a silvery astronaut communicated a telepathic message.
It's had it was like black colored, they describe it as being, having a black suit on. Again, there are consistencies in the reports.
Of environmentalism. Today, it's often cited as the most compelling proof of alien visitation.
It's not the most compelling proof, but it's up there in the top 100, surely.
But did what actually took place differ from the way the story is remembered today? That's coming.
Well, it's how it's remembered. I don't know. We're not talking about how we remember it. Brian. Of course, the witnesses remember it, and they were reporting what they saw today. They're all over the world. I mean, they have interviews with these people. Like I said, one of them's in Canada and goes to Zimbabwe. A couple of them actually make the trip to Zimbabwe for a reunion. One of them is in Chesterfield. He actually lives here in England. He's in Chesterfield. I know because they film him walking along the street, and there's like the crooked spire of Chesterfield in the background. I know somewhere in the United States. There's others in other countries. The one that's most recognisable is Lisa, the little sweet girl. She's a very cute little girl. She was interviewed as well. She's now sort of 30 something. She's got a little kid of her own, things like that. But they're all over the world now, and they are talking to people like Nixon. They've been interviewed many times by Nixon now, and he's gone to an awful lot of trouble to track these kids down, because it's not been an easy task, which is one of the reasons, I'm guessing, one of the reasons why this incident has taken so long.
Up next on Skeptoid.
Skeptoid is the name of this. Here, I'll just show it you briefly. Video. Where's okay? Let's say display capture. There we go. Right. What's happening now? Oh, come on. Oh no. Create new. Oh, what's happening? Oh, now OBS has frozen up. Brilliant. Can you still hear me? Oh, my browser's, everything's frozen. What the hell? Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, shit. Okay, let me just... Oh, good grief. Oh, good grief. Oh. Tell you what, that's a bad idea. Am I still here? Hugo Roon can hear it. Oh, good. How many people can still hear me? Well, God, no one's reporting I've gone quiet. Audio is fine. We didn't see you. Yeah, I just had the display capture on. You can hear me. Thanks for Alan and Tor. The screen's back. Right. All I did was I added the display capture function to OBS, and it threw a major wobbly and decided you can do it. Look like that, but the bastard is like, oh God. All right. This is the. I'll just quickly show you this. All right, this is it. It's Skeptoid Podcast, the 1994 Rua Encounter. There you go. Right, let's get rid of that quickly before it goes crazy again. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Hello, Bernie Tucker. Don't worry about being late. Don't worry about how are you. All right. So let's carry on with this. Oh, what's happening
You're
there?
listening to Skeptoid. I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. The 1994 Rua, Zimbabwe alien encounter. It's one of those stories that defies all rational explanation.
Don't drop your rational explanation in the shower. Hey, Brian.
62 children at a school in rural Africa all witnessed a craft come down out of the sky and land just outside their schoolyard. And a strange...
It was literally... The location where this happened is... There's like an area where they play, the playground is, and then there's a row of logs. And the children often describe the logs. They say, here it's on the logs, just like the edge of the school. Beyond that, there used to be some waste ground where there was scrub and there was trees, which is where it happened. That's now actually been bought up. That land's been bought up by the school and developed. It's now a field. It's now a sports ground. I haven't got 100 tabs open, Woody Black. It's all right. It's working now. That's the main thing. Hello, Jamie Howe. How you doing? Hello, Malaya Graham. Greetings. I'm glad you can all see me. Okay, so let's carry on with this. I don't think there'll be a copyright issue on this, actually. It's like a free download. And anyway, fair use. This is Skeptoid Podcast 760. He's done a lot, this guy.
Being stepped out and communicated a telepathic message to all of them that they need to take better care of planet Earth.
Correct.
The event was broadly documented, not only by responsible news organizations such as the BBC, but also by a respected academic who interviewed the children and reported that they all told exactly the same story.
Well, he wasn't respected after that, was he? I mean, there's, as I said, the story of what happened to John Mack when he started speaking out, not just about this, but about alien abductions. it's a tale of academic infamy, which really is without parallel. I could go on for ages about it. It makes me really angry, actually, to think about it, what they did to him.
Surely 62 children wouldn't all tell the same lie, and surely rural Africans would have no pop culture references from which to fabricate a flying saucer story. While today's...
Well, they a lot of the children from the local black children said Tokoloshi. They didn't see aliens and flying saucers. They mentioned Tokoloshi. And as I've explained, Tokoloshi is probably a cultural interpretation of the same phenomenon that we describe as aliens. I mean, in the old days, in the past, in Europe, there was phrases, there were trolls and fairies and things like that. But when you look at the descriptions of trolls and fairies, very similar to aliens. They even have craft. They're described as arriving in clouds or chariots in the sky, things like that.
Skeptical academics dismiss the episode as a case of mass hysteria.
I know. They dismiss everything. I mean, at least Brian Dunning is not wheeling out the bloody minibus like Steve Mumbling.
The UFO community embraces the Rua, Zimbabwe encounter of 1994 as an unassailable body of evidence that we were visited by extraterrestrial beings. Well,
embrace is the wrong word, Brian. We've concluded it. We've concluded from the evidence that's been gathered that it is pretty unassailable. Yeah.
It was the mid-morning break on September 16th, 1994. 250 school children were all outside playing at the Ariel School, a private elementary school in the Harare province of Zimbabwe. Rua itself isn't even a town, just a local place name, little more than a crossroads in an agricultural region. The adult faculty were all inside having a staff meeting, and none of them witnessed what happened. 62 of the children saw it, aged 6 to 12. Nearly 200 did not. The details are not actually...
So nearly 200 said they didn't see anything, and they didn't report anything. As it happens, whenever a UFO encounter happens, and there's a mass sighting, you get this. Some people genuinely don't see anything for whatever reason. Maybe something to do with the phenomenon themselves. Others don't want to talk about it. There are others because of some mental block, or because of conditioning, or because of the fear of what might happen if they talk about it, or because of the fear they feel as a result of encountering this. They don't want to talk about it. Now, so just because the majority of the children in the playground didn't see anything or didn't report themselves as witnesses along with all the others, doesn't actually have any bearing on what happened.
Is consistent as usually reported, but the basics generally are. Somewhere between one and several silver balls or objects or spacecraft either appeared in the sky or darted about or came floating in low to a field of brush and small trees just outside the school property. One or more either landed or hovered above the field.
Well, it may have hovered above the field before it landed. I mean, some of the children may have described seeing it hovering above the field and then didn't say anything more afterwards. Usually things do hover before they land if they're that kind of craft, the craft that can vertically take off and land. So the fact that some of them said hover and some said land doesn't mean that there was no landing, or there wasn't. It's not either or, Brian. These things are not mutually exclusive.
And anywhere between 1 and 4 men, either normal-looking black men or conventional small gray aliens wearing black clothes, stood either atop the craft or beside it.
Maybe both. Maybe there was more than one. Maybe some stood atop it, some beside it. They weren't described as ordinary-looking black men. I mean, the clothing, they were wearing black clothing. They wore a black suit. This was consistent. And so the eyes as well, that was another consistency. That was a convergence of reports.
Faced the children and communicated telepathically the need to take good care of planet Earth. The craft either faded away, flew away quickly, or disappeared, either leaving one or more men behind or taking them away. When classes resumed, some of the children told their teachers, some told their parents.
Well, yeah, I mean, things like very often, if for example, let's indulge Steve mumbling, shall we? Supposing a minibus crashed in the school playground, came in and crashed. Oh, hello, Sean. How are you? And who else is there here? And Kim Panda 95. How do you do? Just some new people who've joined up. Okay, supposing. Sean has the gender study professor's apron as his as his avatar. Well, nobody's perfect, Sean. Nobody's perfect. So maybe some told the children before, maybe some told maybe some didn't tell the teachers, maybe some did tell the parents afterwards. What would I do if I was a child? What happens? When something does this like this happens, and there's no photographs, there's nothing like that. Very often, the children's story will, testimony will diverge with adults and children. People often have memories not perfect. I mean, we've seen this. It's the skeptics themselves who often make people aware of this. There was that news reporter, who claimed he said he was on he remembered being on a helicopter that was shot down when he wasn't. Things like that. And we talked before about how people conflate things. I mentioned when we did the Mandela Effect discussion. After I did a review of the film The Mandela Effect, I talked about conflation, how there is a genuine phenomenon called conflation, which is errors of memory. Anyway, let's carry on.
The story got out. Universally, it was reported that 62 children with no reason to lie and no prior exposure to the concept of space aliens would all make up and stick to exactly the same story.
Well, you see, if they had made it up, they would probably by now, as adults, they would probably have admitted, it was a prank we played when we were a kid. Pranks are pranks. One thing, the teachers and the parents who know their children were the first people to take them seriously because they know the difference. They know from the behaviour of their child and all their charges at school where the differences are between something they make up and something real.
A couple months later, the event got its most famous stamp of authenticity when John Mack, a prominent and respected professor of psychiatry at Harvard University, came in person and interviewed the children. Many of these interviews were videotaped.
What was the feeling when you looked at the eyes?
It was scary.
It was scary? Why? What made it scary?
The eyes looked evil.
Evil? Mm-hmm. And what was evil about them? Say what you mean by evil.
It looked evil because it was just staring at me.
Hi, Joe Glover.
Staring at you as if what? As if to do what?
As if it wanted to come and take us.
And another little girl.
How did those thoughts come to you? Did they come to you from the craft or from...
From the man.
The man. Did the man say those things to you? How did he get that across to you?
Well, he never said anything. It's just that the face is the eyes.
What was the sense you got from those eyes?
He was interested.
Mack reported to the world that the event was genuine.
Now, that's I should point out, obviously this is like one of the interviews with one of the kids. Now, obviously, what the child is trying to describe here is telepathy. And is using the language that she has. Hi, Joe Glover, how you doing? Has the language she has access to, and she's doing her best using her limited vocabulary to describe the concept of telepathy. And that's what an adult would probably call it. This is the experience she had.
That the children were telling the truth, and that extraterrestrials had indeed visited Zimbabwe on that day.
Well, John Mack's study that he did in Rua, he actually projected in context to the other information that he's gathered about UFO alien contact, which is considerable. He's written a long book about it, which I've read. It's a good book. And he's appeared on several TV shows and things like that, which is one of the reasons he got into trouble. But so everything he dealt with at the Rua School, it's not just like a one-off. He didn't decide to just jump in feet first and go halfway across the world to just the kids just off, as a whim. This was part of a much larger research project that he was involved in, and everything he judged from these children, all the information he got from these children, has to be applied in context with everything else he had been researching.
And his is the verdict that has been endorsed by the popular media ever since, including at least 2 features on the TV program Sightings. Inside academia, however, it is the mass hysteria explanation that has found the most traction, as happened in a number of other mysterious cases we've talked about here on Skeptoid. A literature survey published in the Malawi Medical Journal found that such cases are surprisingly common in African schools, citing many such cases and concluding, the psychosocial environment plays a crucial role in the occurrence of mass hysteria in developing countries. Whether mass hysteria was involved here or not, the psychosocial environment absolutely did come into play.
Mass hysteria this is an explanation that was applied to the Phoenix Lights as well. The mass hysteria, whenever you have, whenever one person sees a UFO, the skeptics say, this is another example of raising the bar. The skeptics will say, well, you're the only witness. No one will back you up. And you say, well, I've got 20 other people here who saw it too. Oh, it's mass hysteria. They keep raising the bar like this. Now, again, if it's mass hysteria, why is it not why wasn't this a passing phase that went away? Why, after these children disappeared, they basically had 15 minutes of fame and then they just went back to their normal lives. They then became adults. Most of them left the country. In fact, a quarter of the population of Zimbabwe has left the country since 1980. And I don't blame them. Why is it now suddenly they've been tracked down, they're commenting and they're now speaking and they remember it? This girl Emily, or this woman Emily, remembers what happened. She stands by her story. She's interviewed very extensively in this film. Hello, Social Dilemma. How you doing, Trevor? Record mass hysteria. What exactly is that? Maybe we should Google mass hysteria. I mean, because... All right, mass hysteria, meaning... A group of people start to believe they might be exposed to something dangerous, such as a virus or poison. Oh, hang on, where's the... Mass psychogenic illness. Oh, dear. List of mass hysteria cases. It's usually mostly in the Middle Ages. Here we go. Witch trials. The Irish Fright. Salem witch trials. The Great Fear. The Seattle windshield pitting epidemic. The Hollingwell incident. Oh, bloody hell! There's a story behind that. That was not mass hysteria. It doesn't. The Monkey Man of Delhi. I'm just skim reading this, and it just sounds a bit like. It sounds like this is some kind of convenient get out of jail free card that the skeptics have kind of pulled out of their arse. What they're suggesting is that people somehow who have a delusion can somehow project that delusion onto other people and then they share it. And the answer to the question is, what triggers mass hysteria? Well, yeah. And the real answer is, if a group of children saw an alien craft land in a field, it'd be totally understandable. They became hysterical, so I don't accept mass hysteria as a means that it didn't happen. Exactly, Rhiannon. Yeah, I mean, why? They were quite alarmed by this. I would be alarmed if it was me. The children returned to the class. They shouted at their teachers. They were very excited. But the teachers knew these children, and I think if these kids had been suffering from some kind of Hollingwell type thing, the teachers would have realised that, and so would the parents. And the children, as the answer, didn't faint or claim to have any kind of physical illness, and they didn't. Rick says a very handy coverall from the Cox School of No Doubt. Hey, knobbers. And Alfred Miller, it's just the government gaslighting us. They know very well, the informed UFO researchers, that the phenomenon is real. They do. Brian Dunning is not part of the government, but he's a useful idiot. He spouts the right message, so people like him, I don't think he actually is being knowingly deceitful. He's just one of the skeptics I describe in my talk. He's a true believer. He's a zealot.
To see how, let's go back and look at some of the less commonly reported details in this event's history. As with most UFO stories, we can trace a case back to a single person who became its primary advocate and creator of the legend. In this case, there were two. One was John Mack, and the other was UFO writer Cynthia Hind.
They're not the progenitors. These people researched it. Cynthia Hind turned up a few days later. Tim Leach as well, the BBC guy. And then John Mack came up a couple of months later. Now, is that progenitors? I mean, really, what are you asking? Brian is bribing. Maybe Brian is demanding here that somehow, when researchers turn up and investigate something and then they go away, that they don't report it, and instead the story somehow magically wafts out some other way. Is that why he's demanding here?
Editor of the periodical UFO Afra News, and also the African representative for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. One day, Hind heard on ZBC radio that there'd been a rash of UFO reports from all over southeastern Africa, consistent with a large meteoric fireball passing over the continent at about 9 p.m. on September 14th.
No, the reports don't talk about. A meteor fireball is when something moves across the sky. I've seen them. I mean, there's actually someone actually mentioned in the. Oh, I didn't do the notice comments, did I? But someone mentioned in the notice comments. I'll do those in a minute. Could someone remind me to do the bloody notice comments? Because I always forget. But someone did actually say here. Where was it? Here we go. Notice comments. All right. I've got some. I'll do these now quickly. Someone in Russia called Stitak says, they've got a Russian name and they're in Spanish. There's Sam Yuri saying something is in Spanish as well. Someone's saying something in Hindi. These are spammers. That's Jennifer Scott says something in French. And Roadhog 360 mentions that I had a typo in the title. I did indeed, yes. But someone else said, where is it? Where's that comment about? So, all right, I've gone through those are the comments. But where? Where's that comment about the comet? Because there's a comet. Here we go, comments. So this page is running very slow. Comments I haven't responded to yet. Okay. Held for review? No, none. Okay. So let's go through these things here. I'll just keep it simple. Here we go. It's Diego Rivera. Who's in chat right now. Yeah. Diego Rivera says, fragments of Comet 73P are going to hit the United States on Memorial Day. Yeah, when they say hit the United States, there's going to be basically nothing more than a free fireworks display. Comet fragments are going to enter the Earth's atmosphere tomorrow, and they're going to burn up, and it's going to be nice. They'll be bright lights. I mean, if you've ever seen the bright sparks flying across the sky. And this is what was blamed on these, and someone says here, all right, type in the title. I'm just going through the comments. Oh, Marley Pumpkin says here, more childish nonsense to distract your acolytes from reality. 2 shootings in the US, but you won't cover it. Just childish UFO rubbish. I'm sure your so-called friends won't agree. Well, I did actually mention, if you remember, Marley, in the last live stream I did, or the one about the UFO congressional hearings, I did mention those shootings. So you're wrong again. Oh, Booth Illicit is back. Hey, nice one. So I'll let's scroll down. I think that's it now. Yeah, that's it for. Okay, right. So where was I? Yeah. So I'm going a roundabout way of all this, but I'm going a little bit of a roundabout way. Sorry, things seem to be running slow tonight, guys. I'm sorry. I'm running slow, but what I basically wanted to say was Brian Dunning has basically just said that the whole incident we're talking about here was caused by that, what's going to happen in some parts of the world tomorrow? Essentially, lots of bright fragments passing across the sky. Now, but that's not what people reported. People reported things more akin to structured craft standing still in the sky or moving in a controlled manner, or lights moving in a controlled manner. So we're talking here. Woody Black says, do the notice comments. Yeah, I've done it now. Okay, that's out of the way. I've done all the notice comments. And, of course, that's completely wrong. He's completely and utterly wrong. Or as the skeptics say, wrong. So, but there's videotape footage which clearly shows things that are not meteor fragments.
2 nights before the Ariel School event. Few Africans knew it, but that fireball had been the re-entry of the Zenit 2 rocket from the Cosmos 2290 satellite launch.
No, it wasn't. Now, I'm sure that one of them was. I mean, no doubt that was happening at the same time. The re-entry of this booster rocket happened at the same time as everything else was going on. But what Brian is doing here is he's taking that and he's using that to claim that the entire UFO phenomenon in southern Africa those 2 days was simply that, and it wasn't. There were too many different sightings over too wide an area of objects that don't fit into the description of what that would look like, whether it's a commentary fragment or whether it's a booster rocket re-entering.
The booster broke up into burning streaks as it moved silently across the sky,
It's not what people
giving an
saw.
impressive light show to millions of Africans. Many people answered ZBC Radio's request by calling in with all sorts of disparate UFO reports prompted by that re-entry.
Disparate? What's meant by disparate? You mean there's a lot of different types of UFO reports? Because wouldn't people essentially say, well, I saw this thing flying across the sky? I mean, yeah, as we just described, witness testimony varies, but it doesn't vary that much. Remember the Avery Carlos, that balloon that those guys pulled off a UFO hoax. I've covered this before. They built a fake UFO. It was actually a little mini unmanned airship. And they flew it over Avebury, where all the sort of woo-woos and tinfoil hatters and hippies gather. And the intent was to make them think they'd seen aliens. Now, but really the hoax backfired. It's actually a documentary called A Very British UFO Hoax. Yes, the hippies at Avebury did report they did see a UFO. They reported a UFO, but they reported pretty much what they saw. None of them were sort of going, oh, wow, I stood there and its mind powers came down and enlightened me, or it picked me up and it was turning cars over with its laser tractor beams or something. That didn't happen. This proves, what this hoax proves is that the so-called most gullible members of society are actually far better witnesses than the skeptics would like to believe.
Ranging from one shooting star to a fleet of 16 brightly lit spaceships.
They didn't use the word spaceships, they just described what they saw.
Zimbabwe was gripped with its own little wave of UFO mania. The radio announcer
That's a very demeaning way to put it, Brian. It's a very demeaning way to put it, you know?
said that the BBC was looking for anyone with information or photographs. Well, as this was her jam, Hind picked up the phone and spoke with the BBC correspondent in Zimbabwe, Tim Leach. 2 things transpired from their conversation. First, Hind learned of the Ariel School event, as someone had phoned it into ZBC Radio. And second, Hind recommended that Leach call John Mack.
Is there a problem with that?
As she was local, Hind went to the Ariel School the next day and had the children draw pictures of what they saw. She took 22 photocopies of what she said were the clearest of them, and most that have been reproduced online show a very conventional flying saucer sitting on the ground on the usual footpads, with the usual row of windows around the equator and the usual bulge on the top.
What is there such thing as a conventional flying saucer? I mean, some UFOs are classic saucers, and this appears like it was one, yeah.
When Sightings did one of their 2 shows on this, their token skeptic pointed out,
I think kids knew about flying saucers. The way
We should point out, Rhiannon will know about this. The Broadhaven kids did exactly the same thing. And there's a photo that the BBC, they held up pictures they'd drawn of what they saw for the BBC as well. Sorry, carry on, Mr. Skeptic.
they drew the flying saucer and the so-called people who came out of it Now, those are pictures you'll find in TV programs, in movies.
But
So, is this skeptic suggesting that because the kids saw these things on TV and in movies, which indeed they may well have done. Hello, Jake Yorkman. How are you doing? You're in Austria now. Oh, you're travelling around a bit. Is this skeptic suggesting that because people saw these things on TV, that they then went and made up the story, or they imagined it based on what they'd seen on TV? Because this was the explanation provided for the Dechmont Woods incident. Robert Taylor, they said, well, he was watching Doctor Who. The skeptics say he was watching Doctor Who and he imagined a thing from Doctor Who, the TV series. And then they said, he doesn't watch Doctor Who. Oh, well, he must have eaten belladonna berries and had an hallucination through the intoxication. He's a forester. He doesn't eat. He doesn't know. He knows what belladonna berries are, and he wouldn't touch them because he knows they're deadly poisonous. What's more, there are no belladonna berries that's ever been found in that particular forest. Oh, well, yeah, they just keep piling more and more unlikely scenarios on top of each other. It was a lighthouse, but it was flying in the air. Oh, it's a flying lighthouse. Well, there was a truckload of burning manure. It was joyriders with an ice cream van. I mean, the skeptics, no one on our side of the debate could possibly come up with anything as insane as what these skeptics come up with, the explanations they come up with. I mean, it was actually Brian Dunning himself, this same guy, I think, who claimed that nobody saw grey aliens before 1977. And they said, well, why? Why did no one see grey aliens before 1997? Because that's when they were in the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that's what gave people the idea. And suddenly people started getting abducted by greys because they'd seen it in that film. Problem is, Robbie Graham actually got in touch with the production designer of Close Encounters and said, where'd you get the idea for these grey aliens you put in the movie? And he said, it's very simple. I phoned up one of the people who sees them and encounters them. And I based my design on what they had experienced. So Dunning's put the cart before the horse here. This is not life imitating art. This is art imitating life. And I suspect he's doing the same thing here. People, very often, the images we see in the popular media, movies, TV, and things like this, which a lot of those kids would have watched, because a lot of them were rich kids that lived in the city. They weren't like the rural farmers. I accept that. I accept that that's the case. But the images you see in popular media very often come from real UFO reports. The manure fire, nothing. I think that's my favourite. It really is. That's hilarious.
Cynthia Hind quickly countered.
Well, a lot of these children don't go to the movies. They live in the country. Parents are farmers.
Her argument was that students at a rural African school would not have had exposure to modern media.
Some of them didn't. Some of them were from a minority, that's to say the least, were from the local agricultural community.
And thus would not be familiar with the concepts of UFOs.
And even it's a moot point either way, Brian, for the reason I've just explained. It's a moot point. It doesn't matter.
And alien visitors. So when they report them...
And they call them tokoloshis, which is simply, as I said, it's how probably the local black children call them tokoloshis because that's how they interpret them through their own cultural lens. If this had happened in 18th century Europe, people would have described them as fairies or trolls.
And draw detailed sketches, the source must be an actual real-life encounter. Let's have a look at the Ariel School.
Well, the alternative, Brian, is that it's not a real-life actual encounter, and these kids made it up somehow. From how they made it up doesn't make any difference. Yet all 62 of them made it up. All 62 of them then told their parents and teachers, who know them well and know when they're pulling fibs. And all 62 of them maintained this prank continuously right up to the present day where they're mature adults.
School. Rua is a suburb of Harare, a modern metropolis of 1.6 million people, 1.2 million in 1994, and Zimbabwe's capital. Since its founding as a British colony with distinctly European architecture, to its modern display of glass skyscrapers and office buildings, Harare has always been the nation's economic center. a 15-minute drive down the R5 highway, and you soon get into agricultural regions. And right about at this transition is where you'll find the Ariel School. Their neatly uniformed students have active programs in many sports, clubs, and other extracurricular activities. They have a competition swimming pool, tennis courts, and a golf...
Brian, how is this relevant, all right? I'm not interested in your holiday video diary, okay? Could you get on with this, please?
Of course. The demographics have changed. In 1994, the school was mostly white Zimbabweans of British and South African origin. Today, it's mostly black Zimbabweans. English is the language spoken in schools, so all the students, then as well as now, are perfectly...
Get to the point, Brian, will you?
...fluent. Ariel was the most expensive private school around, and the students were generally from wealthy families in Harare who wanted to send their children someplace nicer than the crowded urban schools. Ariel's students had just as much exposure to the world's movies and television as people in every other modern city around the world.
So finally we get to the point. As I've just explained, it doesn't matter. This is a trick that skeptics have tried to pull before. I've just explained the Dechmont Wood, the Livingston incident, whatever you want to call it. With a guy, I've actually, for goodness sake, I mean, the trousers were ripped. I'm talking about the Dechmont Woods now. Robert Taylor's trousers. There's a photograph of me holding them. I put my fingers through the holes of them. Malcolm Robinson has them today. Robert Taylor's widow gave them to him when he died. This sort of excuse has been made before, and you can't apply it, I think, to this case any more than you can apply it to the one in Scotland in 1979, and for the reasons I've just explained.
Certainly, including the wave of UFO mania that had been saturated.
That's the second time he said UFO mania. Do you read? This is really weighted language. These are not the words of a rational person to say it twice. UFO mania, where people are reporting, they're filming things calmly in the sky. They're reporting what they're seeing, and they're phoning them into the local newspaper. That is not mania.
Zimbabwe's news media ever since the fireball 2 nights before. It wasn't just Cynthia Hind. In all the pro-UFO reporting of this event, you'll read that these rural African children were unfamiliar with popular media. And you certainly will not read that all they'd heard the day before on every radio and TV station was that spaceships were saturating their skies, all stemming from that Zenit 2 rocket reentry.
Well, as I've just explained, that's not true, Brian.
The UFO community misrepresents the children's background in an effort to persuade you that their stories deserve more credibility than they do.
Not true.
And those children's stories came to us mainly through John Mack's interviews. Mack was going through a rough spell professionally.
What, do you expect the kids to get on TV themselves? How else do you expect this story to be reported to the media? These are little children who live in a very out of the way location, a place off the beaten track of the world's commerce, information superhighways. I mean, how else do you expect this to get out? I mean, sure, Cynthia Hind, John Mack, they turned up, they did their interviews, and then people heard about it. That's inevitable. And why is that a criticism?
Earlier that year, he'd published a book called Abduction: Human Encounters with Aliens.
It's a good book.
As a tenured professor, he'd virtually abandoned his academic work and had devoted himself nearly full-time to attempting to prove his deep conviction that aliens actively visit the Earth. It
wasn't a deep conviction. It was a study he was doing. It's rather like Richard Dolan. He basically decided to investigate this as a module, as part of his studies. What he found out was not what he expected. He expected to conclude what most other psychiatrists did, that this was just nightmares. It was just individual hysteria, etc., etc. It was delusion. It was anxiety, etc. It was psychosis. It was neurosis, whatever. Instead, based on the evidence he gathered as a scientist, he said, no, actually, these things are objectively real, you know. And unlike many of his colleagues, he had the courage to publish that material. That's what happened. He wasn't abandoning his academic career. This was his academic career.
Harvard had opened an official investigation into him for misconduct. specifically for telling people who believed they'd been abducted by aliens that their experience had been absolutely real.
That's because it was concluded scientifically. Now, if that's misconduct, I'll have a rant about this. How the hell can you then say, well, alien abductions aren't real? Because if they're real, all the academics would be reporting them. But no, because this system, the academic system, the establishment, treats them like this. That's enough to keep most of them in line.
One colleague wrote in the Los Angeles Times that Mac was, quote, a brilliant fellow who occasionally loses it, and this time he's lost it big time. Keep that in mind. Harvard's issue with Mac...
Okay, this is all irrelevant to... I think this is irrelevant, really, to the subject matter. This is an ad hominem attack against the researcher. Not the skeptics care about these fallacies, because they contradict themselves all the time. They have internal contradictions within their own reasoning system, which they never really get to grips with. Do you remember my skeptic talk at SUFON? You know, I will indoctrinate her into non-belief. Do you remember that bit?
Is that his thing was convincing people they'd had an alien encounter.
He didn't convince them they had an alien encounter. They reported it to him, and he analysed it, and he published, based on the evidence that he gathered, he concluded that it was real.
So it was with a heavy baggage of bias and preconceived conclusions that Mac arrived in Harare to speak with...
Look, you're the one, Brian, that has baggage and preconceived conclusions, right? It's you. You see what I mean? It's you.
These children. When multiple witnesses are involved in something, they should be interviewed as soon as possible and separately to avoid any cross-contamination between their stories. Mac did the opposite, giving the students 2 months to converse among...
No. Firstly, Cynthia Hine did make that mistake initially, but Mac gave the students 2 months. What? 2 months? What?
Themselves. A crucial insight into Mac's interview...
Hang on. He gave them 2 months to confer and to get their story straight, create a narrative. It took him 2 months to get there. I don't think Brian Dunning has done any research here. You know, when this was actually published, this particular podcast, because I remember it says December the 29th, 2020. It was actually earlier. I think this was originally published earlier. He probably hadn't, by that time, Randall Nicholson's other documentary about Rua, the earlier one, was on YouTube. I remember I watched it. I think I watched it as long ago as 2011, 2012. And he explains exactly the difficulty John Mack had in travelling to the area. He had to raise the funds, first of all. Then he had to arrange transportation. And this was a time when there was a huge amount of social and political upheaval in that region in Zimbabwe. And indeed, the whole country's been in a state of turmoil since 1980. But it was going through a particularly bad stage of it. And so he had to wait for 2 weeks in South Africa. He had, in Randy Nicholson's documentary about this, the first documentary, the one not the Ariel phenomenon, but his earlier one, he talks about this. He describes Mac's journey. Mac went there as quickly as he could, but the reason it took him 2 months because that's the difficulty he had. He was almost turned away. I mean, the reason he had to wait in South Africa for so long is because he was trying to get an immigration visa sorted out for Zimbabwe, and he couldn't. He had to go to the embassy and things like that. Mac didn't allow these children 2 months to... He didn't say, well, hang on. He said, I'll just sit here and wait for 2 months and let these kids concoct a narrative, and then I'll just nip over to Zimbabwe on a plane, which you can do in just a few hours, and I'll interview them. This guy, Brian Dunning, has not done his research properly.
Technique is revealed when comparing his results to those obtained by Cynthia Hind 2 months earlier. The whole theme of a telepathic message to protect planet Earth was not found in the stories collected by Hind at all.
Well, so Hind's interview wasn't as good. Like, she just got the children together in a room, and that was filmed as well. And she just talked to them kind of as a group. It could be that the children weren't willing to come out with that particular story under that situation. So it's true, Hind should have done it differently. But the idea that just because that wasn't discussed then means the children got together and made it up in the intervening 2 months before Mac got there is pure supposition on his part.
This major part of the story did not exist at all until Max interviews. Why? Because he prompted and suggested it.
No, he didn't. I've watched the interviews. He doesn't.
According to his existing beliefs. In addition to being an alien visitation advocate,
he's a scientist. He didn't prompt them. He's trained in he's a psychiatrist. He's trained in doing these interviews. He studied child psychiatry. He knows how to talk to children. He didn't lead them on or anything like that. He didn't implant this message in his head. He didn't sit these kids down and say, Liesl, yeah, tell us, did you have telepathic messages? Come on, you must have had a few telepathic messages, did you? He asked, you listened to him, you watched the videos on YouTube. He's asking the children are providing the questions. They're providing answers to his questions.
Mack was an anti-nuclear and environmental activist. Hind ultimately did report this angle extensively, but only after Mack's interviews.
But the children say quite clearly, they talk about, it's not Mack actually saying this. Dr. Mack is asking them, the children are talking about the environmental and war and things like that issue.
Hind's own interviews were even worse. She interviewed the children in groups of 4 to 6, while the other children were allowed to watch and listen to each group. Every single child's story was necessarily cross-contaminated with the others. There is little wonder that she always reported that all the students told exactly the same story. Maybe an alien spaceship did land there that day and communicate telepathically to this handful of children. Or maybe a couple strangers strolled through the nearby field and maybe a stray party balloon floated past.
Don't tell me. The party balloon was full of swamp gas.
We'll never really have any good idea of what did or didn't happen on
Well, we have a good idea. This is a very, very insignificant case.
That day, if anything happened at all, keeping in mind that nothing at all is what 3/4 of the students reported.
Well, to that as I've explained, maybe they just didn't want this kind of attention. Maybe they lied. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to lie all the time. If something would happen, like there was some kind of fight would break out in the playground, and the teachers asked me what happened, what did you see? I said I didn't see anything.
The actual events are buried under a nationwide UFO frenzy triggered by the
Oh, it's a frenzy now, is it? It's a mania, then it was a frenzy.
rocket reentry.
No, it wasn't a rocket re-entry that caused this.
A hopelessly incompetent story-sharing session of Cynthia Hind, and under the skilled promptings of Harvard University's resident expert in persuading people that they had an actual alien encounter.
False, like I just explained.
As far as serving as evidence of alien visitation, the 1994 Rua, Zimbabwe encounter falls just a little bit short.
It doesn't. Oh, that's it, right. Okay, that's the end of that. I'm glad to get that over with. So I'm just going to go through some of your things here. Neil says, Ben, I'm getting your telepathic message. Yes, I'd love a cup of tea, please. Oh, you cheeky bastard. Hugo Rune says, thanks, Ben. I certainly won't bother watching this film. You've saved me the money. Oh, it's Hugo. I recommend you do. I recommend it. I think it's good. It's worth it. Even at the price it is, I think it's worth watching. Like I said, Brian Dunning made that podcast before this film was released. Would it have changed his mind if he knew that the adults that those children are still sticking by their story? Probably not. He would probably say something like, oh dear, obviously like Randall Nicholson made them say that and scripted them, Oh, Brian, you silly fool. Go and have another bowl of porridge. Mel Browning said the Ariel, Zimbabwe and Westall School sightings with their multiple witnesses keep me interested. They're very similar, Mel, aren't they? Yeah. Snarnock, has got Dr. John Mack's book. Oh, do read it. It's very good. That's very interesting. I mean, it's so much more richer and deeper and more professional and correct than Brian Dunning seems to think it is. Oh, hello. How you doing, body technician? How you doing, guys? So that's it, really. Now, obviously, I have notes which I made, which I can't access right now, but that's basically all I can think of saying about this. So, does anyone else want to say things? Diego Rivera says, are aliens interdimensional? Maybe some of them are. I don't know. So some of them come from other planets. Maybe some of them are interdimensional. There's many different kinds, that's for certain. Skeptoid. Nothing as it seems. It's called the Skeptoid podcast. He does little short clips, 10-15 minutes long. He's covering all kinds of subjects. I have, of course, I've listened to others on other subjects. It's just little short sound bites. Snark says, I keep going on about it. As I wear contact lenses, it will be a rather horrible experience being a total blur. Hugo Rowan, I'm happy to believe the kids. It's the narrator that bugs me. Hugo, that clip's not from the movie. So I'll clarify. What I've just played you is actually Brian Dunning's Skeptoid podcast, an episode from that particular podcast. That's nothing to do with the film. The film is totally different. The film Ariel Phenomenon is totally different. I'll just show you it. I'll just show you the website. It's really if you watch this, you can see the trailer here. You can see the trailer. You can see. I think it also shows you how you can order it. You can order it with PayPal. Here we go. This is really worth seeing. It really is worth seeing. I'd say to Hugo. I think it's an excellent. Oh God. I can't wait to get back to my old version of. Oh, can't I get back to my old version of? Oh, what the hell? What's happening now? What the hell is happening? Oh, dearie me. I can't wait to get my desktop back. It's much better than this. All right, so I'll just put it in here. Here we go. Ariel Phenomenon live stream. There we go. Rhiannon says, if most abductees are taken from cars, then they would have their eyeglasses or contacts on. Oh, right, okay. No worries, Hugo. I hope you enjoy it. There's the links. You can go watch it. It's like I said, I do recommend this. Tor says skeptics filter out everything they don't like, and then take it from then on. Yeah. Neil says, Ben, I question why the authorities must not believe the kids. How can the government confirm or deny it happened? The government, I don't think the government made a statement on this. I mean, the Zimbabwean government is notoriously corrupt and brutal. This was during when Mugabe was still alive. TK says, I thought it was a great analysis from Brian. Well, I totally disagree, TK. That was awful. As I've just dissected it very successfully, I think. Stephen says, Ben, I don't know why you waste your energy on skeptics, because I think their arguments have to be deconstructed, Stephen. It's important to hear both sides of the story and then work out what's truth from fiction. Clockbite says, I think I'll save myself 24 quid. Well, it's 24 US dollars, which is slightly less than 24 quid. Probably Clockbite, the price will come down. I mean, it actually says on the website that they maybe will be lowering the price soon. It was a difficult production. It cost a lot of money. I bet there's probably debts to be paid and things like that. I think it is. Oh, Mel Brown says a Westall. Should I do a Westall live stream? I think I've done one, haven't I? Have I done a Westall one? I like Westall. But if I haven't, Mel, I'll do one. Yeah, I'll do one at some point. What's happening next week, though? I've got Syntheo. I've got the Syntheo coming up. And so I'm doing my Syntheos video. After that, I've got another watch party planned as well for another movie. So look out for the introduction to that. I guess it's almost time for another Comments Reply thing as well, yeah. Snarnox says they can never be proved wrong, like the DNA analysis of the Star Child skull. Yeah, the Star Child skull unfortunately has disappeared. Clopbike says Colin looks a bit like a Draco, does he? No, he doesn't act like a Draco. He's such a nice guy, Colin. Yeah. No, it was Hugo skinning up spliffs while listening to Ben. Oh, right. As usual, Hugo. I can always tell, actually, when you're a bit high. Because of the way you talk. I can tell. Hey, guys. What's it time now? I've been going I'm going to an hour and 48 minutes. A bit longer than that, actually, because I was early starting. So I can't think of anything else to say right now. As I said, I can't access the notes I made. Does anyone else have anything to add about this? David Splendid Isolation has seen the film. Does anyone else, apart from David, has anyone else seen Ariel Phenomenon? Apart from David? Let us know. I think David's the only one. I don't think anyone has. Okay. Does anyone else want to add anything more on this topic? Stevens, can you do a viewer's experience live stream? Yeah, I can certainly do that. In fact, Stephen, what I'll do is probably maybe at Christmas or something, I'll do like an AMA sort of thing. Tor's not seen it yet. Okay. Hugo says, I never get high. My medical use makes me too tolerant. Okay. Well, however we want to define it, Hugo. I'd do some research on YouTube, says Rick. Fine, yeah. I mean, check out the interviews yourself. You can read all the stuff's there, like John Mack's interviews with the kids. It's all there. If you read it, you can see that he doesn't actually try to persuade them or convince them they'd had alien contact. He doesn't. Oh, would you want to find it for free? Oh, well, I think I wouldn't recommend that. I'd say always. Obviously, it's gonna be distributed in various places, but pay the filmmaker. You know, like if someone wants a copy of my books, I'd say you've got to buy them. You can't get them for nothing. TK says, "Has Brian made you angry, Ben?" No more than most other skeptics do. See you, David Schultz. David's off. See you, mate. See you down the road. Yep. Don't forget, tune in for. Check out the videos next week. Good night, David. And I don't know when I'm going to upload I'm actually shooting the St. Theo's video tomorrow. I don't know when I'm going to upload it, though. I don't know when. But I will upload it at a certain point. But night. Night, David. Well, Teresa said she's seen a UFO in 1979. Right. Martin Taylor, I'm skeptical about skeptics. Yeah. Martin, do watch my recent SUFON lecture about skeptics, because I cover that in more detail there. See you, Hugo. Yeah, you're high, I know. Take it easy. Hatchie said, Ben, Kev Baker liked us. I don't think he smoked while he was broadcasting, Kev. No, and he certainly didn't smoke anything more than cigarettes. See you, Joe Glover. Take it easy. All right, so there's nothing. I think that's it. Erector set, pardon the erection oversell check. I don't know what you mean, nothing, sorry. Egos and emotions, yes, no, the pseudo-skeptics, definitely. Have a good night, Rick. Take it easy. Yeah, I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Much appreciated. You did well, Martin. You have watched Ariel Phenomenon, right? Good for you, mate. Good for you. Stephen has seen ghost demons and a giant bat. Oh my god. See you, user one. Yeah, take it easy, mate. Thanks for joining me. Much appreciate joining this live stream. I'm a bit tired now, but it's been a good one. It's going to have been a good one, isn't it? Yeah. All right, thank you, everybody, all of you. Keep an eye on the channel for the next adventure. And I'm glad you're here too, Snarnock. Yeah, good for you guys. Watch Ariel Phenomenon. I very much recommend it. It's a very, very good documentary, I think. Very stylishly done, very poetic, quite moving in places. See you all. Best wishes. Good night. Oh, Erasmus Volkish has just turned up. Sorry, Erasmia. Sorry, Erasmia. We're going to end it now. But thanks for joining us. See ya. Oh.